Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So, when thinking about today's podcast, I had a million and one ways that I wanted to start the podcast. I wanted to talk about, infidelity. I want to talk about um, male vulnerability, we're going to get into. But here's the deal, I need to open it up. I felt I'd be remiss to not open this up with the first statement that comes to my mind. I'm not going to go into why I feel this way. I'm not going to talk about, you know, the details of why I feel this way, or I'm not doing any of that. I'm just going to make a clear cut statement and I'm going to stick by that. And that's how I wanted to start today's podcast. Women, I stand with you. I stand with you wholeheartedly. Your body, your choice. That is all. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say hello and I want to say welcome to the Hopeful Romantic podcast, the Hopeful Romantic M.A.N podcast. Yes, I'm here today. Really excited about this show today, only because it's derived from a couple of questions from my inbox. There's a lot of, there's one question that just outlines everything, just kind of stays there and hovers and is always present. And it's always surrounding infidelity. I always get the question, right? And it's always framed like this, just to put it for you. Dear Dropping Dimes, I did everything for him. I was the best thing that happened to him. I treated him so good. I gave him sex in the morning, sex at night. I did this, I did that. I washed, I cleaned. I was the perfect, I was all that. I was great. And he cheated on me, right? And then I'll get this question a lot too. What can I do to prevent my man from cheating on me? What can I do? What can I do? What can I change? Um, First and foremost, let's address one thing, man. The first thing is this: when you're looking back on your relationship, right? Let's say you choose to replay your relationship. You have to replay the relationship like an athlete looks at film. That's it. They do it. They look at the film, they get what they can from it, and they move on and they make the necessary adjustments. They don't keep going back and keep going back and keep going back, even after they know why they made the mistake or what happened. They don't keep going back trying to replay that situation. Okay, so let's talk there. So you look if you choose to do what I'm talking about. Let's say your man was unfaithful and you felt like you gave him your all. Now here's the deal. Full disclosure: I've been that guy. I've been the guy where a woman gave me everything on more than one occasion. Gave me everything, and I still cheated, and I still left, and I still fucked up. So I'm not gonna sit here and I'll say this to the day I stop podcasting. I'm not one of those guys that's gonna sit here and claim perfection and talk to you like I've never. Oh no, you need to, and what? That'll never happen from me. You're always gonna get the honest truth, right? And if my truth sucks sometimes, hey man, I'm human, but I think that if I share in an appropriate way, it'll help more people than it'll hurt. So we go back, and you get that question. Like I said, you get the question a lot. They always preface it by saying what an amazing person they were, how good they were. They love including how I get this one a lot. I gave him blowjobs in the morning, at night, when he came home from work. Like I was super sexual. People try to add all that in there, and he still cheated. And da 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 da. Let's be clear, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be clear. There is only one man, one type of man, or one thing, one type of man that is faithful. There's only one. In all this world, there's only one type of man that is faithful. And that is the man that chooses to be faithful. Infidelity very rarely has anything to do with you on that initial level. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't get me wrong. We're going to get into, why I named the show what I named the show today. And the title of the show is uh, Why Are the Side Chicks Winning? All right. But I don't want anybody to jump down my throat. I'll let you know that this is part of a bigger conversation that I think people will appreciate. Let's start off. So I said earlier, there's only one type of man that is faithful, and it's a man that wants to be faithful, right? But what does that mean? You'll hear that a lot. You'll hear that all over the place. Oh, a man that wants to be faithful. Okay, Mike. And what I hate, right, is when you're watching TV or you're watching like these shows, and they just throw that out there, like, and you're supposed to just be like, oh yeah, and then you absorb it, and then you're talking to somebody, and they regurgitate it to you. Well, the only man that's supposed to be faithful is the man that. Well, why don't we dig? Why don't we dig a little bit and let's find out what do you mean? See, there's one question. There's another question in my inbox, so I'm going to touch on that before I go back to the infidelity, and it kind of ties in with infidelity. When people ask me, what's the question I should ask? How do I know if he's a good guy? How do I know if he's not going to hurt me? How do I know I'm not going to go through the bullshit again? How do I know? How do I know? How do I know? There's one question that you need answered. Now, how you get that answer varies because sometimes you feel it, the energy. Sometimes you see it as the way that people react around him. Sometimes you don't. And people have such a good way of putting a mask on, that mask that you meet. You know what I mean? That's why we're going to get into vulnerability, because the vulnerability part of it is the guy you meet behind the mask. Right? So let's talk about this mask. Guy puts on a good mask, and let's face it, guys out here, a lot of them are working what I call mid-level game. There's high-level game, okay? High-level game is honesty. The highest level of game is honesty. That's when a guy looks at you and says, yeah, you're cool, but you know I have other women, right? You're okay with that? No, oh my God. Okay, so you can go. I'm not taking that away from you, that decision to say yes or no. I'm not robbing you of that. So I'm giving it to you. And you'll see that you'll be surprised what some people say yes to, right? So that's the highest level of game, where the people know about each other and they're in, and you made the lines clear. There was no lies. But there's a lot of guys out here running mid-level game. The reason they're running mid-level game is because they are working behind the mask, and they're kind of projecting everything you say you want, everything you think you want, right? That's what they're putting out there. So I need a man. A lot of times women will want a guy with a really good resume. What does that mean? Oh, he looks like this, he works out, he has a great job, he's self-sufficient, this and that, and they go through all these resume type questions and answers, right? And the guy fits that criteria, right? He's amazing, he treats them nice, he takes them out, he's sweet. But what does that really tell you? You know what that tells you? That tells you this guy takes care of himself. This guy, he values himself, right? But here's the question it doesn't answer. And I don't care if you're wearing a three-piece suit on Wall Street, or if you're the maintenance man at a local high school, or if you are an NFL player, or if you are a CEO of a company. There's one thing you need to know about the man in your life. Does he love himself? That's the question you need answered. Before you go having sex and falling for him and want to listen, if that's what you want to do, and hey, it can go either way. I don't really care. I'm just there to have fun. Fine. But if you're dating with a purpose, and you're looking for a long-term relationship, something that's going to last, something that's going to bear fruit, you literally have to ask yourself, you have to look at this person and say, do they love themselves? The second question can be, are they really working on themselves? See, now, the reason this question is important is because it's often confused. You meet somebody who's well put together, they have nice things, they take care of themselves, their health is great, they look amazing, and you mistake that for somebody who loves themselves. No, that's somebody who takes care of themselves. Big difference. Big difference. That doesn't require emotional intelligence. You know what I mean? Doing that. Taking care of yourself, lifting weights, you have a nice car, good job. It does not represent. It just doesn't. The number one question you should ask It's something. The one you should ask yourself, right, is does this person love themselves? The reason you ask that question, right? And again, I hate to go into cliches, but I'm gonna make a bigger point later. You need to know if a man loves himself because if he does not, I promise you, you are just a bump in the road until he does discover and love himself. That's all you are. Now, a lot of women are going to listen to this. Oh, but women too. Cool. You ever want to talk about it? Come on. We'll talk about that portion of it. I would never dare cross that boundary and tell a woman what they think. I'm not. That's not my thing. I'll give you what women have told me they think, but not. I'm not giving you that. You know what I mean? What I'm going to tell you is you need to know that. How do you know that? How do you watch that? There's a lot of different red flags that come up, right? There's a lot of different red flags that come up. And I feel like people ignore ignore them. I feel like especially what I see, especially I feel like especially women. It's not a fact, it's just purely my opinion. I feel like especially women ignore the red flags because they're looking for a different type of red flag. Um, I'll give you an example, right? No, let's just talk about that. Let's keep it on that subject. I want to make sure I make this point. They ignore the red flags. A lot of women are nurturers. They're really and they're very quick to give a man the benefit of the doubt. It's the funniest thing to me when I have female friends, right? That I will tell them and I'll take the side. Remember, I call myself the hopeful romantic. I call myself AKA the feminist with chauvinist tendencies. So I'm a big defender of women when I see bullshit. I'm a big defender of women. Why? Because not only have I supplied the bullshit, you know what I'm saying? But if I say I love you like a friend, I care about you, I want to protect you from that nonsense, especially when I see it's weak game. You know what I mean? But what you'll find is you'll tell them, hey, listen, man, you see this and that. This is what that means. Be careful. No, because he told me that he had to do this and that, and he had to. I'm like, it's always gonna sound like a great story. It's always gonna sound like a great story. You know what I mean? But it doesn't necessarily answer your question. You know what I'm saying? It does not take away that red flag. It is not your job. It's not your job to accept somebody's red flags. Your red flags, women were born with what I call a superpower. They were born with a superpower. And in that superpower is this instinct that smells bullshit and feels bullshit. But for some reason, I always say men have a red light and a green light. Green light means go. Red light means I ain't messing with her. I'm out. This is too much drama shit. I ain't doing it. That's how we work. Ideally, right? Women seem to have a red, yellow, green, and in that yellow line is where you find a lot of problems. It's That's where you get into a lot of problems. You know, you catch a lot of issues because you are easy to identify the red. Okay, you feel good about the green, but then you hit that yellow, and it's like that guy that sees the yellow and says, "Yellow means go." Like it doesn't mean slow down; it means go. It means keep going until that one time you get pulled over by the cops, and the cop was like, "You ran a light." Oh, but it was yellow, and it doesn't stand up in court. You still get that ticket. You know what I'm saying? So we got to go back to it. Let's talk about it. Um, what does it mean when a man loves himself? Right? What it means is he has, and he's not. It doesn't mean perfect. It does not mean perfect. It means I worked on myself, and I'm a work in progress, and I know where my deficiencies are, and I don't lie about them, and I don't hide them. I put them out there for you to see to make a decision on whether this is too much for you or if it's just right. Okay. So this leads into so a lot of these guys, what they'll do is to fill that void, to fill that hole. right? They start to use women like a band-aid on emotions that need stitches. They end up using women like band-aids instead of, really sewing up that wound, fixing it and healing and being whole and finding somebody. No, what they'll do is they'll find somebody that can temporarily patch the hole. What happens? After night, 2 nights, sometimes they need 2 and 3 patches at a time to make themselves feel whole. So that's what they do. That's what we do. And people do this in all aspects of their life. They do it whether it's by diving into drugs, habits, situations. And then I see men do it with women. They meet women, and instead of addressing, and what they do is time, right? Because we've grown up in a patriarchal society, a male dominant society. What we'll hear is, boys will be boys. He's a playboy. You've all heard the cliches about how, yeah, he gets the most girls. He's the man. He's cool, right? You always heard that thing. Was it? What's the difference between a male whore and a female whore? Well, if one key opens many locks, it's a master key. But if, what do you call it? Many keys open one lock, it's a broken lock. That's what we grew up thinking. That's what we grew up hearing. That's what we paid attention to. And then you always have your parents, right? Because I'm gonna put this on parents. And if you're a parent now, make sure you don't do this. Your mother always has people, men in their life, or your family members have people in their lives that they glorify. They glorify the womanization, the womanizing. They glorify it in your eyes. So as you grow up, you're like, oh, okay, this is an acceptable way to fill this hole. That's what you literally feel like. You feel like as you grow up, it gives you increased status. You're with beautiful women. They feel good when you're with them. So, oh, this must be okay because growing up, everybody went crazy for my uncle this. Everybody went nuts for my brother's best friend. Everybody went crazy for these type of people. Oh, my male best friend, he's trouble. He's wild. Oh my God, he gets all, and you big him up. You big him up, and especially if you have kids around, or especially if you have sons, they're internalizing that. They're internalizing that 100%, and they're saying to themselves, "Oh man, you mean, you mean that's why you see a guy, right? And he thinks, and we don't know what the facts are, but he thinks that his father was faithful his whole life and was a good man. He may have his philandering ways here and there, but then when it's time to settle down with him, you see that. You kind of see it because he had that guidance. He had that strict, like saying, hey, listen, love your woman, be with her, protect her, save her. And it kind of has that guidance. You know what I mean? So how does it lead into male vulnerability? It goes like this, man. So over the years, the narrative has been women cheat because they were missing something in the relationship. And I know a lot of women, no, that's not true. We don't, not anymore. Okay, cool. Again, cool. But the narrative in the past was that women cheat because emotionally, they cheat because they get robbed emotionally. You know what I'm saying? From a man. And all of a sudden, he opens up an emotional door that they had that should have been closed had he been doing what he was supposed to be doing. That's what they make you feel like. And then the narrative is that men, we cheat because they're willing to risk it all, whatever. They don't care. Oh, it's about the physical release. It's about, they don't even have to know you and be emotionally attached to you. They could do da. I'm here to tell you this. Yes, you're right for the most part. That's how it works. But there is another component. There is another component, and it's also true that men walk away or step away, right? But think about it like this: a man will step away when he's not emotionally fulfilled, when he feels empty from his woman, right? That she's not giving him. But the truth is, she's not supposed to make him feel full. He's supposed to make himself feel full. So you would think that the natural narrative would be that no, you can't cheat because he's acting this way, because you should be fulfilled yourself. You should be happy yourself. You should be, you know what I'm saying? You should need him to fill that void. That's the common, underlying tone of people. I'm here to tell you this, man. Look, there's some guys out there that have cheated because you know what? They felt empty. So when I get asked the question, what's something that I can do, right? Usually by the time you're asking that question, it's too late. It's usually too late. By the time you're asking that question it's because now you're in repair mode. Now you're in fix it mode. As opposed to being, I always talk about a proactive versus a reactive, um, proactive versus reactive in a relationship. I talk about if I'm going to answer this question honestly, right? And let's say, like I said, there's always been the thing, there's no answer. No, there is an answer. It just happens before it becomes an emergency. Once it's an emergency and once they're falling out and there's no respect and all this other stuff, nobody could fix that. That's on you. I don't know. But there's stuff you could do in advance. And a lot of women, the ego on a lot of women is gonna be like, oh, but I did that. But I did that. I was this, I was that, I was this, I was that. Slow down. Slow down. Let's talk about it. One of the things I love to talk about is let's go into why it's titled "The Side Chicks Are Winning." Right? And it's a plan where it's just being funny. I'm not trying to I don't really mean it, but I've always heard this example and understanding where you're at and understanding this example helps you. Um, it'll help you. It'll help you drastically to navigate this situation with your spouse or with your other. Okay, so we go gambling. We're out till 3 in the morning. I'm down about $600. I'm down about $600. Let me think. I'm on my third or fourth whiskey. It's 5 in the morning. My back hurts sometimes. So whatever, right? So now you're the wife. You're invested in him. So I understand why you act the way you act. You're gonna look at him and be like, "Hey, no more drinking. We're done." You're gonna look at that $500, $600 and be like, "Yo, we could be using that for something better." You lose it. Come on. Let's just cut the law. Stop. You know what? You're up all night. Your back is gonna hurt tomorrow. This is how you're thinking, right? You're thinking like that, like, hey, logically, because you're invested in this person. The side chick is not invested in him. So when that fourth whiskey comes out, she's like, "Oh, have another one." When the time to place the bet, she's like, "Oh, just put another 200." When it's like 2 or 3 in the morning, she's like, "Oh, we can leave at 5. We'll leave later." She doesn't. She encourages you to do all the bullshit, right? She encourages you to do all the bullshit. So men, we get our ego fed by these side chicks. They feed our ego. That's what they do. They play the girlfriend. They feed our ego. I don't need demand anything from you. You're the man. Your decision is the one we're gonna follow. You're amazing. And then you have the flip side of it where your wife or girlfriend is like, "Yo, what the fuck? Oh my God." And they're gonna argue and they're gonna fight and they're gonna get upset. Why? Because they have something to lose. They're invested in you. All right. Well, what if I told you that as the wife, you have a clearer path to feed his ego than the side chick? But Mike, what do I have to feed his ego? Oh my God. Well, you want to be happy or you want to be right? Yeah, you're probably right. You shouldn't have to, but do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? You know what I'm saying? It's fairly simple. I give you that sharp contrast, right? Because it's not. I've seen in the past, right? I've seen modern women like downplay the role of their mothers, their grandmothers, and what they did, and kind of like, oh, she had to sit in the kitchen, she had to do all this stuff, she had to do all that stuff. What they didn't realize was a lot of times those women handled the men in their lives much like that side chick handles them. Well, she makes them feel like they're making the decision. She makes them feel like they have a say. She makes them feel like you're the one, you're the guy. And the truth is, she's pulling the strings the whole time. She's the one pulling the strings. So let me get out of what's an example of that? An example of that is pretty simple. I've talked about it once before, right? There's a housewife, all right? She's a stay-at-home housewife, raising children, stay-at-home mom. He works, he busts his ass, he works two jobs to come home, pay the bills, whatnot. Sh- Then there's another couple. He works, she works, everything is 50-50. Everything 50-50, right? And that's just how the house goes. Right? Okay, so in scenario B, which is both of them working 50-50, mom, right? She wants a new kitchen. Let's say a new kitchen or living room, whatever room, but let's say kitchen. A new kitchen. He looks at her and says, I don't think that's a good idea. No, I like this, da 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 da. She gets mad. They get into an argument. He looks at her and says, she looks at him and says, well, I don't need you. I got my own money. I don't care. She goes, spends her own money, gets the kitchen redone. X amount of thousands of dollars later, it's redone. Now they're angry at each other because they didn't consult, whatever, whatever. But she got it done. And at the end of the day, she's happy, right? Then I compare that to back in the day. Back in the day, these women, what they would do is, if they maybe had a part-time job or if they didn't work at all, what they would do is a lot of times they handled part of the budget, the household budget, right? He would deal with maybe some of the major bills, and he would give her, here, take care of this, take care of that. And what they would do is, they'd pocket some money, put a couple hundred here, a couple hundred there. They would pocket some money, and then it's time. She wants a kitchen. Hey, you know what? I want a new kitchen. He's like, nah, man, that's too much. Da 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 da. And instead of flipping, talking about, I got my own money. I don't need you. Da 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 da. What did she do? She kind of started to play her position because she knows him and she understands him. And she says, okay, I can flip, we can fight, and I not get anything. Or I can kind of like cater to his sensibilities, to that ego that we talk about, and see how that works out. And before you know it, she has a brand new kitchen that she didn't pay for, her husband paid for, or the money that comes out of the house paid for. She didn't have to come out of her own account, none of that. You know what I mean? So when I look at those scenarios, I'm like, who really won? Okay, in the first example, she won because she got it done, and she's Miss Independent. Cool. But is that any better than being woman number two, who basically said, "No, I run this household. Eventually, I get what I want." You know what I mean? So you get those two comparisons. Now we're going to talk about male vulnerability, and the reason it ties into infidelity and all those stuff is because there's a lot of holes, emotional trauma. There's a lot of issues that men experience that this day and age um, is frowned upon as far as to share. I do think there's an underlying movement where people are getting better at it and being better to like really share. Men are willing to share with each other. But the truth is, for a long, long time, men would grab their problems and they'd shove them down their throat, down into the deep pit of their stomach, and they'd be suffering in silence. And for years, um, a lot of them were dying early. This is where we get a lot of the there's a core of infidelity there. You know what I'm saying? You get a man that feels empty. He feels he can't be vulnerable. He feels, guess what? I'm going to go find it because that temporary, that hour I spent with that chick, that 2 hours I spent at the crap table with her, that this and that. You know what I feel? It's like getting high, ladies and gentlemen. It's like getting high. It's like I smoked that marijuana. I'm high. Guess what? Nothing's wrong. But when the weed wears off, all of a sudden I got issues again. I got problems again. And that's how men view these women, right? So that's how it ties into infidelity. A lot of times it's Let's normalize men working on themselves and being open about it and saying, hey, listen, this is where I'm hurting. This is what I'm sad. I watch the internet, I follow the internet and I follow a lot of shows. And when I'm following these shows, it's they're always telling themselves, man, I don't know how to say it. Like I watched this one podcast. I'm not going to name it, man. But there's one podcast, and it's this group of guys. They're nice looking guys. I guess they're kind of in shape. They're witty. They're very witty, right? And what they've developed is a great mouthpiece, so they can wear that mask that we talk about on another level. They can wear that mask on another level where you believe that that's who they are if you're not paying close enough attention. But I can sit here and I can talk to you about that, and we can talk about how, again, eventually humans tell on themselves. Humans always tell on themselves, and it's been to the T. There's this one guy. Oh man, he is brutal when it comes to women. Then there's also the guy who passed away. Um, he could be tough sometimes, but there's guys. But here it is, right? Here's what to listen for the next time you listen to these shows. And I'm telling you, there's some really good ones out there. I talk about masculinity and being a man. And nowadays, you can't be soft with a woman. You can't be vulnerable. If you're vulnerable, you're screwed. It's screaming. This is what it screams to me. One time, I showed a girl this side of me, and she told me to man up and stop being a bitch. And you know what I did? That shit hurt so much that I grabbed that and I hid it and I put it away and I never showed it to anybody else. I'm not showing that to nobody. From now on, it's F women and women only want this and women only want that. And I'm not showing them that vulnerable side of me because this one girl that I was vulnerable with told me to man up. Listen, I'm here to tell you that I am not just telling you that story, I've lived that story. I remember when it happened clear as day. I was super upset about something. And normally, when you meet Mike, I don't care if the world is collapsing around me. And people that know me on this, that'll see me, that know me, they know I'm not lying when I say this. The world could be collapsing around me. I could have been in the hospital yesterday. I could have been over here the next day. I could have been going through mad shit. And when they see me, they're like, yo, Mike, what's up? Yo, I'm great, bro. I'm fantastic. What's going on with you, man? And I meet them with this energy, like, hey, what's up? Like, let's talk about something positive, something amazing. Life is good regardless, right? So the reason I ended up being that type of Mike is because there was a time in my life, like I said, I was going through something really, really rough. It was a rough one. It was a rough one, and I had to deal with it was dealing with my daughter. And if you don't know me and you get to know that that's the center of my world. And I'm not just saying it because, oh, I'm trying to be super dad. No, anybody who knows us knows the type of relationship we have. You know what I mean? She's amazing. That's my girl. So now here's what I'm saying, right? So you meet the wrong woman, you come across the wrong woman, and when you meet her, you're like, hey, I'm going through A, B, and C. A, B, and C, and yo, man, this is it. And I'm not talking about woe is me, life sucks, I can't make it, I can't catch a break. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is this is one of my favorite sayings, and you'll hear it 1,000 times from me. It says, love my darkness, my light is easy to love. What do I mean by that? That mask that you put on, that show, that yo, everything's great, bro, everything's fine. Yo, that's dope, man. Everybody loves that person, right? But late at night, when shit is dark, you know what I'm saying, and you're going through these emotions, and you're not in the mood to make people laugh. You're not in the mood to make people smile. You need what you need is TLC. You need some TLC. You know what I'm saying? You're like, fuck, I'm messed up right now. And you run across the wrong woman. The wrong woman looks at you and goes, yo, man up. Yo, you're acting like a bitch. Or maybe she doesn't use those words, but she projects that energy like, yeah, you know what? Nah, it's not basically not what I signed up for. That right there Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that right there. So I always talk about boxes in a man's brain. I always talk about boxes in a man's brain. There's the girlfriend box, the friend box, the really, really my friend box. So let's go back. There's the really my friend box, which I would never touch with a 10-foot pole. Then there's I call you my friend box, but if you slip, I'm gonna hit that. Then there's the messing around box, the girlfriend box. Somewhere in there is a long-term commitment wife box. Okay, that box is special. Why? Because you can work your way out of that box, but you cannot get into that box. You cannot work your way into that box. So what does that mean? Oh, but Mike, I know people who were friends and then they got married. Yeah, yeah, but check this out. One of them was hot for the other one. That's why I say there's your sister friend, like the one that you were like, ugh, I'm not even sharing a bed with you, bro. Get out of here. I love you, but get away from me. And then there's the girl that's your friend, your homie, but you look at her and you're like, yo, you messed up one time. That's the girl that becomes the wife. She's the one that can sneak into the box, into that box. So what happens is there's the saying, oh, I need her to be my peace. You'll hear that a lot on the internet. Oh, you need to be a man's peace. I love how people say that and then they just stop. And then women will always ask you, what does that mean? What does that mean to be a man's peace? Well, I'm here to tell you, according to me, according to my book, according to what I write, for a man, vulnerability equals love. So for a woman, communication equals love. For a man, vulnerability equals love. Okay? So what I'm telling you is that darkness that he has, that sadness, when he takes the mask off, right, and he shows you that mask, he shows you what's behind it. All right? There's two types of women. There's a woman that, like I said, that looks at it and it's like, oh man, you know what? This is too much. I don't even like you like that. This is some bullshit. That right there crushes a man. Crushes a man. I don't care how tough you think you are, how hard you think you are. When you try to show somebody a vulnerable side of you and they don't handle that well and they kind of tell you to man up, yo, that crushes you. You know who pays for that? The next 10 years, women pay for that. For the next 10 years. That's where you get these podcasts. That's where you get these internet shows. You know what I mean? Because this guy is like, F women, blah, blah, blah. And that's the quickest way out of the girlfriend long-term box. If I cannot be vulnerable with you, it means I can't come to you when I'm weak. It means when the world is being cold, you're not going to be my warmth. I can't come in there. Now, when I say warm, I don't mean soft and pink. Okay? I don't mean, oh, she's a sweetheart, she's gentle. No, there's two types of moms, man. Well, there's tons of moms, but there's two types of moms. There's a mom where a kid falls, she comes running up to him, kisses boo boo, you okay, baby? And then lets him go play. Right? Or coddles him. And then there's the other mom that, he falls. She's like, stand up, come here. Dust him off. Did it hurt? Are you okay? All right, you want to go play? Go ahead, go. Two different types of love, but they both serve a purpose. They both serve a purpose. And we need that as men. We need both of those. We need you to kick us in the ass sometimes and snap us out of some bullshit because there's a fine line between sensitive and soft. There's a fine line between sensitive and soft. Sensitive is, hey, man, these are my feelings. This is what's going on. This is why I've been acting this way. This is communication. Let me tell you what you didn't know, right? And now, a woman that loves you and cares about you, she takes that information. She examines it. She looks at it and says, I could work with this. I love you. And I'm going to, you know what? I'll never use this against you. I'm going to put this away. This is us. This is for us. Your vulnerability is safe with me. You're literally telling him, hey, man, you can be at peace now. Because now you don't have to bottle it up. It doesn't have to fizz inside you like a shaken soda. Now I'll sit there with you and I will listen to you and I will push you when you need to be pushed. I will hold you when you need to be held. And that's nowadays, here's the problem. Nowadays, there's so much discussion about gender roles, right? That there's a confusion. There's a confusion, right? Men think, what do I need? I love this question right here. What do I need a woman for that I can't pay for? Please, in the comments, tell me if you've heard men say that before. Tell me, what do I need a woman for that I can't pay for? I need somebody to clean. I could pay for it. I need sexual. I could pay for it. I need this. I could pay for it. I'll tell you what you cannot pay for. You're going to learn today. You're going to learn today. There is one thing you cannot pay for. You cannot be vulnerable. You cannot pay your way into vulnerability. You can't find somebody and pay them to really, truly care and listen to you and love that darkness. That's what separates us. That's where I tell you, hey, listen, you, all that misogynistic bullshit, all that stuff you see on the internet. Here's the thing, right? I may sound like I'm bashing these guys, but I'm not. I want to back up. I want to backtrack a little bit. The truth is they're necessary. They're necessary because I always talk about a bell curve. They're talking to the bottom right position of the women. You know how the bell, right? And there's two sides that are, and most of the people land in the middle. Well, that's how I feel about this. These niche, I hope I said that right. Show they found a niche audience, and it's a lot of times it's young girls that want that type of guy. They think that's masculinity. They think, or they're misguided in what they want. So they're like listening to this guy that sounds like he has wisdom. But I'm going to warn people and let them know, look, he has wisdom in his niche, in his little section, because of the type of woman he's talking about. You can't talk to Michelle Obama like that. You can't grab a woman that, loves herself, is secure in a good relationship, is happy, has good relationships with her father and things. There's very rarely you could do that to them. You can't grab those. So a lot of those girls are misguided. They just, he's convincing them that, no, you need this, you need to be this type of guy, and women are just going to cheat. Yeah, okay, cool. I agree with you 100% about the women you're talking about. That small group on the bottom right, that small group, yes. Most women land in the middle. And if you could do just enough and make sure that they feel safe, secure, that you profess, you provide, you protect, you're there for them, you know what I'm saying? Emotionally, especially your emotional intelligence, more even so than money. See, one of the things that's changed and evolved over the years is back in the day, the easiest way to provide safety and security was money. I have the money, so I provide and I take care of everything, and you don't have to worry about these things. You don't have to worry. Everything's taken care of. You're good, right? That formed it was a form of security. It's like, oh, okay, this guy could protect me. He could take care of me. He could. Yeah. What's happened over the years? Over the years, women have outpaced us in a lot of areas where they caught up on the money. They caught up. Don't get me wrong. I know there's plenty of guys out there that make tons of money and all that stuff. But overall, women have caught up and they're making more money than men. They're making just as much money. So if you're used to, right, if you didn't adapt to the new world that we're in, and you're still thinking that your money gives you dominance, gives you power, and now she just took that from you, yeah, I can see why you would be in limbo, not understanding how, what she wants and needs from you. You know what I'm saying? I can see that. I can see why you're lost and why you feel mad and insecure, right? But I'm gonna put it to you like this: if tomorrow at your job you were dealing with technology A, and tomorrow at your job they said, "Hey, listen, we're transforming over to this entirely new system. It's a whole new system. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna quit that? Oh, I can't do that. I'm done, man. I'm out of here." Or do you adapt and learn what the new system is and perfect it and become a master of it? That's what you do, right? Well, the same thing is available to today. So we took money off the table as being the primary source of providing safety and security for a woman, right? And again, I hope that when people are listening to this, I'm not talking like damsel in distress, safety and security. I'm talking about a deeper level of sense, of self and sense of emotional well-being and things that go on. So, like I was saying, Um, yeah, you don't adapt. You adapt, right? Well, how about it? What if I told you that you can adapt in this world too? This is a world you can adapt in, because the new age woman, right? And again, this is from research that I did for my book, asking. I had a group of 30 women that I asked questions to, not only them, but the women in my family and close friends. I had a group of married couples that were 7 years, 15 years, and married 25 years that I ran a lot of my stuff through. So this is not me coming out just, hey, I'm going to just toss it out there. This is what it is. No, this is after a lot of conversation, and just a listening and paying attention. The new way to provide safety and security is loyalty, ambition, but ambition towards your family, meaning that there's nothing you wouldn't do for the progress of your family. Watching you go extra hard for your family, right? Um, so there's loyalty, trust, there's communication is a huge one nowadays. It's a huge part of why people, how women could feel secure. I always talk about it, and I'll give it to you again. But the reason I say communication for women equals love is because they vent and let out their emotions on the man that they love, right? And when they stop doing that, I always say, be careful, man. Don't fear the noise, fear the silence, because when she goes quiet and she stops talking, Papa, that's when you're in trouble, man. That's when you're in trouble. So we're talking about this situation in terms of so yeah, the communication. So that's just a new way of really providing that safety and security, because you are, through your actions and verbally, letting her know that you have a secure place in my mind and in my heart. You don't leave it up to interpretation. A lot of times our silence leaves a lot up to interpretation. And when they start thinking, what could he be thinking? What's going on? Why, he doesn't really talk to me like that. And then they see you talk to your friends and fantasy football and I'm talking about sports. They see you do all that. But when it comes to talk about deep stuff, you're not talking. They're like, yo, what's going on here? Something's up. We need to. So what I say is that, right, silence speaks volumes. That's Jen. Exactly. Thank you, Jennifer, for chiming in. Silence speaks volumes. So you have to look at it from both angles. Men, let's be responsible. Let's understand what our silence is telling them. So now that money, if we're on an even playing field and the money's the same, well, we're contributing to the house the same, right? And I still want to be able to make sure she feels safe and secure. Now I have to really start using my mouthpiece and my actions to communicate to her that, hey, this is where I want to be. My family means everything. You are my shining star. You're my winning lottery ticket. You're my pink starburst. You are my Super Bowl. That's you. And you're able to communicate that, and she feels that. She internalizes that. Now you have a woman that not only provides and does her part outside the house, but I'm sure they're doing their part inside their house, but now they're not coming up empty. Because a lot of times is you're working your ass off, you come home, you bust your ass with the kids, you do everything you got to do, and then you have somebody in front of you who's ungrateful in your eyes. They're ungrateful. And you're like, dude, I'm not doing this for a pat on the back, but you know what, man? I really wish I had your help and your support here. Like, what's up? Now, let's take that same scenario. Like I said, she's home, she works, she comes home, she does her thing, hustles, blah, blah, blah. But then you come in and you take over and you make sure that you do your part. And on top of that, you let her know, hey, you know what? Through your actions, through your words, that you're important. I always say trickle down economics in the home, man. I know a lot of people are like, no, my kids are my life. There's no way. Listen, this is just, again, now this is just an opinion. This is just dropping dimes, throwing your opinion out there. It's trickle down economics in the home. Love your wife first. Well, if you believe in God, but love your wife first, then your children. What do you mean, Mike? Okay. First of all, she dictates the energy of the house. She's gonna dictate the energy of the house. If she's fulfilled, she's happy, she's loved, you know what she wants to do? She wants to pour herself in back into her family. If she doesn't, she's exhausted and she's drained. And she doesn't, you know what I'm saying? It sucks to be there. So you want to make sure that you do your part. You know. All right, so we're coming up on 50 minutes, and I try to keep this podcast to 1 hour. But and there's plenty to talk about on this subject. There's plenty to talk about on male vulnerability. What I'm hoping to do is I'm hoping to bring men onto my show, and we could have a circle and just speak honestly. Like if I can maybe rent a studio down in Miami or something, and we're all get in a room together and we just talk. It's in my head. I model it after a lot of what I'm seeing. There are some beautiful things that I'm seeing on the internet. Like I said, I'm a big fan of like the Pivot podcast, and even I Am Athlete prior, where men get together and they do like a little health check. You good? And let me tell you something. The one thing about me is I don't just talk this talk about male vulnerability and being there for each other. I walk this walk. I mean, every month, every single month. And I hope, please, if you're a person that I've sent this message to, that I've texted this message to, please comment so that people know I'm not lying and I'm telling the truth. Especially if my fraternity brothers, all you guys, let people know that I'm not bullshitting here. I send once a month, I go through my phone. And I copy and paste. I'm not going to sit here like I give everybody an original. I copy and paste and I go, yo, man, just check it in, bro. How are you? How you feeling, bro? You good? Do you need anything? Yo, everything all right, bro? How's the family? Whatever. It would astonish you. It would astonish you how many men come back to me texting me, yo, man, bro, you don't even know, man, how much I needed this today. I'm going through it, bro. And they're suffering in silence. And some of these men have whole wives in their house. Some of these wives, they have girlfriends, and they're still suffering in silence. And you're like, shit, man, let's talk. And you'll always get, I've gotten, I'm not going to go into the scenario, but I've gotten a couple conversations where people literally replied with, you have no idea how bad I need this in this moment. You don't know the thoughts that were going through my mind. Thank you. Like, and I'm here for you. And and we just it's just chatter, like conversation. What's up? You know what I'm saying? But it's like a lot of these men are just waiting to explode. And you got to ask yourself, why is it that you have a whole wife or a whole girlfriend at home and you're willing to explode to me? I'll tell you why. Because when people talk to me, I don't give a shit about their tone. I don't read into what how they're saying it. I listen for what they're saying to me. And I'm like, oh, shit. And yeah, you know what? So, I always talk about triggers and stuff. Yeah, man, if you say it to your wife that way, you may trigger some angry feelings and why are you talking to me like that? And I can't believe you said it that way. And it kind of you just back off. This is what happened. That's the equivalent of telling a man, yo, man up. Like, why are you? It kind of cuts off their process. And all of a sudden they retreat and you're like, shit, man. Oh, man, she put the emphasis on the wrong syllable. That's not where I was going with it. I needed to talk about, what I had on my mind, these feelings. And because I didn't lace it with sensitivity and I didn't lace it with this gentleness that she needs to deliver, I'm out. Meanwhile, you talk to another man and I'm encouraging us as men, right? As men. And, I used to make a delineation between men and men of color and be like, oh, men of color. And now I'm realizing, and again, you could disagree with me. That's fine. I'm realizing, no, this is a man problem. This is a man situation. When you're stressed, dude, I got guys that inbox me and we talk and they're like, I don't even know where to go, bro. It's just like, man, the pressures that are on them, not understanding that, a lot of these men didn't have role models. A lot of these men didn't have a how-to manual. And women are going to be like, well, dude, I just came up. We're not talking about you. Cool. Dope. We're not talking about you. We're talking about men. And they didn't have a freaking a manual. And they didn't know. And they didn't have a dad. And the examples that they had in the hood or the examples that they had around them were shitty. So they're really listening and like just developing this whole situation from scratch. And when they're overwhelmed and they're not understanding what's going on, and they're just completely like, well, I don't know what she wants. Dude, that's coming because he's cooking from scratch. This ain't pre-box macaroni where you open up and everything, the instructions and all the ingredients are there. That's not how life works. No, you have a guy that's literally looking around and just guessing and saying, okay, this is what they did on TV and whatever. And I always love the TV example, right? You grew up watching like the Cosby Show or something. I don't know if that's a good example these days, but the Cosby Show, which I absolutely loved growing up. And it was like, wow, that's the role model of a good father, of a good man. You know, let's say Carl Winslow, what do you call it? He was a good father, good man. Huxtable, all these guys, right? You name the show. And they kind of give you the end product. They give you the end product of what the person became and how they got there. They don't show you the years that they were shitty guys. You know what I'm saying? And they try to maybe make you assume that, oh, maybe they were good all along. No, it's impossible. Bullshit. Some of them were womanizers in their teens, in their 20s. Some of them, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And now, you know, you're watching the show. This is just me now as an adult watching some of these shows. And I'm like, okay, cool. But how did he get there? How did he get to that point where he was such a good dad and he has it all under control? You know what I mean? That's why I despise shows, and I normally don't call them out, but I despise shows like the Red Table Talk. Yo, you want to talk about a show that, triggers the shit out of me and I cannot stand it? Okay, this is just my brief example on why, and then I'm going to just keep it moving. What you're watching on that show is the result of millions of dollars worth of therapy. It's the end. They didn't show you from day one when they started, and they may try to explain it, but they don't show you from day one. You weren't there. So all you're getting is the end, and it's beautiful. And you know what? Proof of that is him slapping some guy, slapping Chris Rock. That's proof that we're watching bullshit. Because remember when he was getting told, yeah, I was sleeping with, and he sit there with his face all crying or whatever? Yeah, well, that shows you that what you got was the tail end of therapy and all that stuff, and that shit still didn't work, those $1 million worth of therapy. It just does. It's the equivalent, right? You know what that show is equivalent of? That show is the equivalent of is, well, when I was hungry, I ate. And what I did was I opened the refrigerator and I cooked and I ate and now I'm full, right? And there's people watching it right now and they're like, how'd you get the food? I don't have anything in my refrigerator. Where'd you get the food? Where'd the food come from? If you can't tell me where the food came from, don't tell me I should go eat. Don't tell me I should fill myself up and what I should do. You need to tell me, hey, yo, listen, you know that food that was missing? Well, look, this is where I was at when I show me that part. But again, I'm rambling and I'm sorry, but that shit really triggers me, man. That people will watch that show like it's the gospel. And I'm like, yeah, $1 million. If I give me $1 million, I guarantee you by the end, we'll all be talking like that. I guarantee it. Give me $1 million, come sit with me, and I guarantee you in a couple of weeks, me and you will be talking fantastic. Yeah. Shit, that's what it takes. A couple $1 million with it, no problem. And I'm an advocate for therapy. So I'm not sitting here like shitting on the therapy part of it. I'm just shitting on the part that they just kind of, it's like when you watch poker. When you watch poker on TV, right? You think you're watching a whole game. You're not. What you're watching is the best hands and the best situations. And they make you feel like you're watching a whole game. So if you watch poker on TV and you think you can go sit at a table and play poker, you're sadly mistaken because the action doesn't move that fast. It actually moves very slow. And there may be a guy there that's bet 5 times in a row. And in reality, somebody doesn't even bet 5 times in a couple hours span. You know what I mean? That's the difference. Reality versus fiction. Don't fall for the fiction. All right. I'm rambling, ladies and gentlemen, and it's the gift and the curse, and I get passionate about something. I want to say something before I close out today. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Why am I saying thank you? This is one of my favorite things to talk about, man. But I figured I'd end it like this so that people could hear this part of it. I'm sure you've heard it a million times. What is your why? What is your why? What is your purpose? What's your why? What's the thing that the reason for it? What gets you motivated? What makes you do this? Right? And there's a great story, man. There's a great story, and it's about Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson. For those of you that don't know, they're widely considered one of the biggest upsets in the history of sports is when Iron Mike Tyson, the god of boxing at the time, was in Tokyo. I believe it was 1990, 1992, something like that. And he got knocked out by this, what is considered a journeyman boxer, Buster Douglas. I remember when Mike Tyson fell down, everybody was like, the king has fallen. Like, holy shit, the world is going to end. We didn't think this was possible. Superman died. That's what it felt like in that moment. And when they went to Buster Douglas, they asked Buster Douglas, how did you do that? How did you kill Kong? Like, how did you do that? And he tells a story. He says, I'm trying to get emotional saying the story, but he says a story and he says, 2 weeks before this fight, I was at my mom's deathbed. I was at the side of her bed. I was at the side of her bed, and even in her weak state, she was telling everybody in the hospital that I was going to be the next heavyweight champ. That I was going to be that guy. I was going to be the next heavyweight champ. And when I got in that ring, I had two choices. I could die with my mother or I could live for her. And she was my why. She became my why. I did not want anybody to look at my mom like she was a liar. And I chose to live for her, and I knocked out Mike Tyson. Again, one of the greatest upsets in the history of sports. That tells you that your why is the greatest, most important thing that you need in your life. Your why, when you find that purpose. Mark Twain says the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Hopeful Romantic M.A.N. podcast. I'm your boy Dropping Dimes, aka the Hopeful Romantic, aka the feminist with chauvinist tendencies. And I want to thank you for joining me in walking in my why. Have a good night, everybody. Peace.